Alright, so second video, I wanted to discuss the show on Netflix, Cassandra. Gonna be an open spoiler discussion because I feel like with Netflix's policy on dropping everything right away, if you had any interest in watching the show, then you probably already saw it. So this will be an open spoiler discussion. If you don't want to know anything about the show, I recommend that you favorite the show, walk away, give it a look for yourself, and then come back and watch the video at a later time. All right, you've been warned. With that down, I'm going to dive right in here. So, Cassandra was a very good premise. It kind of played upon the AI idea, the one like Terminator used back in the 80s. Sort of that same trope where there's an AI figure, and you kind of see this in the trailers, that is posing some sort of threat. The movie is, from what I can gather, or the show, I'm sorry, is from what I can gather, originally in German. You can kind of pick that up from the text messages. It is a dubbed over show. So you kind of have to get over that if you're not if you can't stomach. Some people just can't stomach the dub thing. Like as soon as they see that it's dubbed over, they immediately lose interest. I'm not one of those viewers. I can watch a show, whether it be dubbed over or not. I'm just looking for a good show. The show starts out pretty good. It's interesting. The mother in the show, well, there's two mothers in the show. The mother you meet initially, very endearing, cares about her husband, cares about her children, looking for a fresh start. You find out a few episodes later that they moved because the mother's sister, the children's aunt, committed suicide in the old house they lived in. They moved to this new house. It's antiquated. They don't tell you what time frame it came from, but you kind of guess from the show that we're looking at late 70s, early 80s, maybe. The house they move into is what they call in the show one of the first smart homes ever built. And when they walk in, they soon after moving into the house, they figure out how to power the new system up. It looks dated for the time they currently live in the show, but it's interesting. You have this modern age family who moved into a old style smart home. Cameras are everywhere, TVs on every wall that the AI can move between. Interesting show. It gets into a little bit of the children's lives. There's two children. There is a daughter who's the younger child, and then the son, teenage son. And, you go through their school life. The show really picks up when you see that the AI that pseudo runs the house for them has some weird, initially you don't know how to place it, but you can feel something's off with this AI. Like it's thinking maybe too human-like. There is an actual movable robot in the house that the AI controls. So the AI can move this robot from room to room. It helps them chop up vegetables. It could turn the thermostat up and down. Like the AI is fully immersive. The show really picks up when it goes back in time. At some point throughout the show, it decides to take you on the journey of how this house was built. Not built, but how the AI became about. Before it does that, it gives you a look into the family that built the house, the family that lived there prior to the new family. And that's where I got the idea that it had to be late 70s, early 80s, just because of the way they're dressed, the mannerisms they use, some of the outdated ideals about how a female should be in a family unit. And some of the technology they're using at the time seems, and I could be wrong, it could be late 60s, but in my mind I'm thinking mid to late 70s, real early 80s. So in this older family, the first family, there is a similar family unit. There's the mother, the husband. They have a son, and initially you can tell the father is the, I mean, it's really cliche. The father's drowning himself in work, leaving the mom at home to basically just take care of everything at home. She's the mom, she's the dad, she's the cook, she's clean. She does everything. The dad pretty much spends 98% of any time he has available at office. You find out that he is, in fact, a scientist. He is involved in what he considers cutting edge medical advancements. Um, Part of that plays into the plot. The original mother becomes pregnant throughout some tropes in the movie. It's neither here nor there. She ends up pregnant. Part of his advancement, he has what I would consider a prototype for ultrasound. They have a weird name for it, but it's essentially ultrasound using radiation. You find out in the show that the ultrasound inadvertently damages the baby, and then later on in the show you find out that it's probably the cause of the mother's cancer, which she develops later in the show. They really, in the show, it kind of felt like it was written in last minute, because initially you assume she lost the child. Later in the show you find out that she didn't lose the child, but they made a decision to keep the child at home because the radiation deformed her physically. Her face was mutated. Once the mother, the original mother of the house, found out that she had cancer, she was going to die pretty soon. Like, she didn't have much time. The cancer was everywhere. They even made a pun about it, like, well, were you involved in some kind of radioactivity? Because the cancer that she had spread so fast. Of course, the husband knew immediately that he was the cause of the cancer, but he didn't seem very concerned about it. As a matter of fact, that's why I kind of called it cliche. He was really kind of unrealistic in how much he didn't care. Like, of course, there's family units where the male is just, or vice versa, the female doesn't care. But he really seemed to be completely cut off from any reality that he was involved in anything. The show really picks up from there, and honestly, at this point, you're pretty locked in with the show. You feel like, okay, I got to figure out where this is going. You learn early on in the show, sort of, that somehow the AI in the house, when the new family moves in and they activate it, is correlated to the original mother of the house. You don't know how deep, but you know something's up. One of the advancements the father was working on, the original father was working on, the scientist, was he was trying to develop a way to basically move your subconscious into a system, a computer system essentially, that would essentially have you live forever. You would have no human ailments, no sickness, no deterioration. You can continue basically just living on as a robot. So obviously you find out in the show that the original mother happens to be the AI system in the house moving forward. They get into detail about, of course, the cancer was killing her, so they made a decision. Well, really, she made a decision to have herself her subconscious moved into this robot, which would essentially take her life, finish her off, essentially. Um, they go through that process. Up to this point, like I mentioned in the show, you're pretty locked in. You feel like, okay, this is getting meaty. I need to see what's going to happen here. Um, Flashing back to a few points earlier in the show, the point when I mentioned that the AI seems a little off, you can tell the AI had grown an affinity for the son and the daughter of the new family. And she basically was trying to remove the new mother or their mother from the equation entirely. And to some success, honestly. And at this point in the show, they're kind of bouncing back and forth. So they're going back to what happened to the original family, and then they're bouncing forward in time and showing you what's currently progressing with the new family. A lot of movement in the show, but it's not hard to follow along. Once you're watching it, it's kind of hard to, when I'm describing it to you. But when you're watching it, you easily bounce back and forth between two locations. It's not hard to do. So a part that I didn't see coming moving forward in the show was that they actually dove into how life was once the original mother was fully AI. And that was interesting because most movies or TV shows, they kind of leave you in suspense as to just assume what happens when a person does this. But this show really, like, it showed the issues with someone losing their, for lack of a better word, humanity. This to me is the part where the show kind of falls apart. A lot of the choices in the show were kind of stupid at the end. Some of the choices the new family's father makes is kind of questionable. Some of the things he sides with the AI on is a stretch to say the least. It seems like he's intentionally overlooking things, just assuming there's no way AI could possibly do this. And at some point you ask yourself, okay, either all these things are just a coincidence and your wife is truly psychotic, or maybe she's on to something here. And it seems like for the plot of the show, they really just make him an idiot. And it doesn't, and you get no indication before this ending, towards the end, that he is an idiot. He's clearly an intelligent man. So for him to make some of those decisions are questionable. The flashbacks to the original family were interesting. Honestly, that part of the show is what made it a watchable show, because some of the dynamic between the father-son relationship, some of the dynamic between the husband and wife, you find out there's infidelity going on there. The part of the flashbacks I didn't like was that they never really gave you any story about the daughter. They hinted about her. You saw her as a newborn, but they never really fleshed out that character. And part of what made me, in the end, think this show was a pass was because the ending of the show really leaned into the mother's affinity for the daughter in the past, the AI mother. But they didn't give you any context as to when that developed. Like, they really skipped past her childhood altogether in the show, and they want you to believe that ultimately she is redeemable because of how she felt about the girl. And that just really didn't stick the landing for me. All in all, if I had to give it a Tracy score, and this is for a TV show, and I mentioned before the parameters, you have to be a captivating story. The story has to move the plot along, move it forward. You have to stick the landing. For me, I get what they were going for, but honestly, when the ending made this show so bad, it really made you feel like you wish you hadn't watched it. And for that, I give it a 2 out of 10. It's really a hard skip. For as many episodes as it is, it makes you feel like you really just sat there and wasted your time watching this full thing play out just for it to end the way it ended. Check it out if you want. You know, if you're interested in the show, this is just my opinion. Yours can be very different than mine, but for me, it's on the bad end of the spectrum for sure. But thank you for watching the video. I'll upload a new one soon. I'll give you an update on what that's going to be about coming up soon. So thanks again. See you next time.